Right. So I think we can get started, Parag. Thank you formally for joining
Yeah,
in for this
sure.
first of this year retail and fashion meet. Parag, now this is going to be an interactive session. So Sriram, Naeem, Sivaya, you are all invited to ask questions. Also Nisha and Sheetal, if you want to pitch in and ask questions or just share your views, I'm sure Parag would look forward to that as well. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So
I'll just begin with a small opening thought process of what I have got about fashion
sure,
and
Parag,
retail
over to you.
and what I have come across in the last few months. And then on the basis of that, your agreements, disagreements, whatever, we can talk about that.
Sure. We are all ears.
Right. All right. Good. So, anyway, I'm reading out of a document I have prepared.
Mm-hmm.
So, good afternoon, first of all, to all who are here and people who are recording and you see the recording also. So, all future is born out of experiences of the past. The year gone by has been a year of uncertainty where fashion has somersaulted and retail has been dumped and put into silence. 2020 was not a very favorable year for either the customer or business. It, however, has been a great teacher and healer. We have, as mankind, learned once again how to simplistically and minimally lead our lives. This is where fashion and retail are now headed. We must realize that the biggest support in trying times has been technology, and mankind was supported very ably by technology. When we were closeted in our homes, it was the internet that allowed us to continue our work from home. It was the internet that allowed the news to be delivered to our house and entertained us when we were at home. The cell phone technology helped us to connect with the outside world and get things to our doorstep. And we could connect with them, they could connect with us. Supplies, etc. We learned to live with clean air, and we realized what it was to live in cities without traffic and noise pollution. We had time to pay attention to what is needed uh, to prevent deterioration of the earth and be more eco-friendly, looking at how the environment around us was changing. So fashion, retail, and technology will most certainly complement each other and will go hand in hand to this journey into the future. Fashion preferences have now changed. Consumption of core products and basics have accelerated, and showy, flashy fashion has taken a backseat. We are seeing that in our sales also, that the showy, flashy products are now slowing down, and the basics, comfortable, easy to fit garments are selling more. E-commerce, which picked in and helped when retail was locked down, proliferated on selling products which provided comfort, be it clothes, blankets, fashionable watches, cosmetics, whatever you name it. Our minimalistic preferences have led fashion to look comfortable as the prime driver for designs of the future. Home comfort, fashion, and simple elegance will be the key words for new designs. Designers and corporates will look into use of fabrics and materials which are eco-friendly and lead to earth sustainability. A retail design firm which designs for H&M and M&S and the likes of them has called out a new retail design trend, and the trend principles are less is more. In terms of design, how it is translated is in retail design, less is more means that all showrooms will be less cluttered, people will have less merchandise, but they will have assisted tabs and QR codes, which will be displayed along with the garments for the customers to read about the product and know more about the product and make it more interactive. As I said earlier, the new normal, retail and fashion will go hand in hand using digital technology, and it takes us to a new evolving of the omni channel. It's a blend of e-commerce and retail stores using digital technology. Let's visualize how omni channel works. Okay, so let's take the example one, just to take a name. Miss Rita walks into a retail store, and either on the high street or a mall, and she chooses a garment, appreciates the fit, and decides to go for a fit and choose a garment. The salesman in the store will show her two more products of two more colors, and she may or may not like the products, but he will also volunteer to show her 5 more products on his tab or on his iPad, whatever it is. So she will be able to choose more than what she sees physically there. The sales girl person will show her all the products, and she would probably end up choosing a product which is not physically available, but she likes the color or the shade. So the salesman then goes ahead and helps us place that order on the store, which is nearest to that store in the city. And he places the order there. Mrs. Rita pays for it and goes home. While Mrs. Rita reaches home, the product picks and packs the product. The store will pick and pack the product and send it to her home. So Mrs. Rita's trip was not a waste. She could successfully complete the buy that she had gone out for, and she's got the product at the comfort of her doorstep. So this is a blend between retail and e-commerce technology that is happening. In terms of omni-channel, it is called the endless aisle, which means the customer has got endless possibilities to choose from when they go to a store. The other thing is called the other e-commerce, the omni-channel methodology is known as something called click and collect, which means let me take my own example. I was looking for changing the tires of my vehicle, and I was looking around for car tires and kind of came across several websites and read about tires, etc. I came across one website and of a tire company who was talking about the tires. I could read about it, and I could finally select what I wanted to buy. Once I selected the tire, it then, looking at my geolocation from the laptop or phone, whatever I was browsing from, pointed out to me the nearest store that was near my house where I could go and get the tires fitted. So I went and chose the tire, paid for it online, and I was able to choose a time, an appointment, and a date on which I could go and get my tires replaced. So not only I had to not go hunting, not only I had not to go looking for 4 different tires and find out which one was more appropriate, I could save the time, go at the appointed time, which was convenient to me to the tire shop, and in 40 minutes I was out. That saved my time and I made a knowledgeable buy. So this is the other phase of omni-channel where technology helped and retail could get. That tire store would otherwise never have gotten me as a customer. I would not have walked into that store probably because it was out of the way, or I wouldn't have known, whatever may be the reason. So that retail store got a customer from the online with walking into his or her shop. So that's the other side of omni-channel. I will now appraise you about some newer technologies that are coming in, and that is also to assist retail. So when the lockdown was in progress, and just as the malls opened up for a few days, etc., we came across a software which was allowing us to create appointments, allowing customers rather to create appointments. So we had thought of using this software and started a pilot for that, which meant that customers could book an appointment before coming to the store. And I could restrict the number of customers coming every hour to 5 or 6. That the customers had enough space and social distancing within the store. They could buy what they wanted and then be comfortable of not having to have too many people. So this was also technology working for us and for the retail and getting us customers while they were seeking for appointment. All the guidelines for COVID-19 and how they have to protect themselves were all given. So they were all aware of that too. The other technology that we also came across and we piloted was we always now have to have a CCTV camera. This is as per police regulations also in the malls facing the entrance of the store to recognize who's coming in. We are using that technology to point out who the customer is. And on the operating system, on the laptop or the billing desk of the store manager, the name of the customer pops up. So you know that you can see the customer's name. The camera has got an artificial intelligence built in, which recognizes the customer from a repeat purchase, having come earlier to the store, and the name
from your own database.
Yes, from our own database. That customer, assuming that the customer has come before, okay, and she's coming for a second or a third time.
But do you have customers' physical like photo as well on your database?
It's not a photo. As the customers enter, the camera is anyway got that DVR which is recording, and the artificial intelligence records those photographs, the faces the face and the image, and it is saved every time a person is entering the store. It is saving those images. And as that same person walks in for a second time or a third time, that recognition happens. Once that recognition happens, it connects at the database and finds out who that customer is and throws up the customer's name. So the store manager sitting at the desk can see that Mrs. So and so has entered the store. And so she can go and greet the customer with her name and say, welcome, Mrs. So and so. Also, the other thing is happening is it helps us in upsell and cross sell. That also was another factor, that it throws up the last 3 purchases that she did in the last 4 months or 5 months, whatever it is. Last 3 is what they count, not how often they purchase, but the last 3 purchases. So you probably get a trend of what the customer is choosing and the size preference that they have. That makes the store manager, it makes her life easier, and the customer feels kind of flattered that the store manager remembers her size, she remembers her preferences, all of that put together, and the right products are shown. She can make a purchase within a limited amount of time and go home happy. So this is the new artificial intelligence. It has its shortcomings. It is still under development. Too many faces coming in. Our own sales girls going in and out are recorded. So there is a confusion between their faces and the customer's faces. The technology is evolving. But I just wanted to make a point saying this is where we are headed and this is where things are going to improve. There is another brand in the UK that has got a mirror. It's a suits company and it has got a mirror in their store. The moment you wear the suit and you go and look at yourself in the mirror, all the plus points of the suits are called out on the mirror. So behind the mirror is a digital screen which says it has got these shoulder pads and it has got these cuffs and this is the lapel and this is the whatever the nuances of the suit are called out on the mirror. So you see all the features of the garment when you're standing in front of the mirror, and you kind of know everything about the product without anybody having to tell you. So those are the kind of technologies that are coming in and are being developed for the future. That's how the future is headed. Also, free Wi-Fi that we get in malls. It's not actually free. The free Wi-Fi that the malls are getting is being used to give push notifications to the customer. So as you pass by those stores, you're getting a push notification on your cell phone, giving you certain offers and telling you about what is available where. And that kind of makes you create a walk-in into the different stores. So it will be, to conclude my remarks, I would just say that it is necessary for designers and retailers to create products that are simplistic but elegant and create a reference to sustainability. Retailers need to be able to catch the customer's attention whenever he or she thinks of their product category, using social media, digital and physical retail presence, etc. And the key to the future of retail is to be in complete sync with the customer's needs. So somebody kind of elaborated to me that, look, the customer's lifestyle is, let's say, since we are all in Bangalore, she's traveling to Commercial Street and she's the holding of a particular brand from her car when she's halted at the signal. She kind of scans that QR code and the Google Lens will tell her what that product about is and what is the nearest shop to the location where she is. So if she, let's say she's headed to Commercial Street, she will know where the shop is in Commercial Street. She can walk into that store and choose the product. So that connect that happened with the brand and the hoarding is then translated into a sale.
Awesome, Parag. I was so engrossed in your talk. I just noted down things that you were mentioning, and it was quite interesting to note. I'm keen to know, has Enamor stores or Dixie stores started doing this use of technology already?
So Dixie doesn't have stores, Enamor does, and we have tried out the appointment and the artificial intelligence in our store.
How about the hybrid model that you were mentioning, that you either pick up from the store or buy at the store and gets delivered?
So that is live. That is live. It has been live for the last couple of years. So it's, though we don't have so we don't pass on the order to multiple stores, but since our Bangalore warehouse is right there, the order goes directly to the warehouse. The warehouse picks back and couriers the stuff.
Right, and that was my next question. And how do you actually manage the supply chain in a omni-channel hybrid model? Because now you are also, it's not that you are only doing delivery, so it can be consolidated at one place. and it's not that you're only doing store sales as it was the case before. So how do you manage the supply chain in terms of stocking that it needs to be in the right place for either of the scenario, or is there a time gap between the ordering and pickup that allows you to kind of move the stock?
So Rishi, the biggest advantage we have is we have been on the e-commerce marketplace for the last 3 years. So this individual pick pack has become religion to us. We have got a set of people who are doing this pick pack and processing every day. And whether the order comes in from the retail store or it comes in from the customer, which is a Flipkart or an Amazon customer, doesn't really matter. They are still, the entire system, the process has been put in that individual orders are picked, packed, and handed over to the courier at the time they come for pickup. So 1 o'clock is a delivery courier, 1:30 is e-cart, 1:45 is Myntra, whatever it is, they keep the parcels ready and they hand over accordingly. That's how the supply chain has been set, and that's why we are able to meet this.
Okay, so you were kind of already prepared for this
Yes.
because of
Yes.
the e-com channel that opened up.
Yes. The other pilot that we have also done on Omnichannel, and which I did not call out, but we have done in Bombay, is there was an app called GoFind, FYND, GoFind, which was there for a short time. Now they've taken some funding and become something else. But the GoFind app promised delivery to the customer within 2 hours. So you place an order for an enamel product online on the GoFind app, and within 2 hours it is delivered to your home. So what it did was, if the customer was ordering from west of Bombay, then it would locate the enamel store in the west of Bombay and pass on the order to the west of Bombay store. The west of Bombay store would download the order, process, pack it ready, and the courier will come. The courier has a certain beat route. So while going on the beat route, he or she comes to the place, picks up the parcel, and goes and delivers to the customer. And
kind
we
of
would
a
call it,
hyper-local model there.
yes, we would call it customer delight, because that's what the customer is delighted about. She wants to go out for a party or an evening out and she needs to buy something, and she gets delivery within 2 hours. So it's like delivering bread.
Right. So also sounds like that JFM of 21 looks extremely different from what it was in 2020, right? In terms of the entire business setup, the way we were, and it's like 1 year is equivalent to say 4 or 5 years where we would have been in terms of technology deployment usage. I don't know.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So, but in terms of the picking up of business itself, I know you were mentioning before we started, and you said that it seems to be back to pre-COVID levels.
Not really. So there I have seen differential recovery. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Depending on the locality that the mall or the shop is in, and depending on the how the people are viewing the danger of COVID for themselves, people have gone out or have not gone out. So without naming the mall, there is a certain place in Hyderabad which is very elite, but people are still not going to the malls there. Similarly, I have a mall of a store in mall in Bombay, which is doing 83% of pre-COVID numbers. So there's the big change. There's the big drastic change there. I can see. So, but on an average, if I have to take it for my EBO stores, we are back to 70% almost.
Okay. But how much of it is driven by the fact that the last quarter was the it's usually a good quarter in terms of O&D, right? It's a festival, the holidays. So what I was reading that the recovery got supported by the time frame of the year. But do you see it continuing in JFM as well, or how is the thought process internally and with other retailers, or now is the real test time?
So there are a couple of things that we are seeing as trends. There are certain people who were kind of averse to buying online. That's not the case anymore. They are not averse to buying online. So there are certain people for regular stuff would shift to online and would not walk into a store. But there are most others who still come, want to do their fittings, want to do their tryouts, spend time just as therapy. So that is where we are seeing the recovery happening to even now we compare numbers like to like. So to November 2019 to November 2020, December to December, so on and so forth. And that's where we have found 70%, 80%, 85% people who are more, I would say, more akin to retail would like to actually go and touch and feel, still come to the stores. People who feel that the brand is trusted, I know the brand, I don't need to go and touch and feel the product, I am better in the safety of my home, still order from e-commerce.
So how significantly e-commerce mix has changed now?
E-commerce kind of helped us survive, actually, let me say that way. Because our e-commerce was robust, we started off selling on the e-commerce from the 8th of May. Our e-commerce got activated on the 8th of May. And so when the lockdown happened, let me put it this way, when the lockdown happened,
amidst the lockdown that your e-commerce got started.
Absolutely.
It's a lockdown baby.
Yes. We were the ones who were chasing the Flipkarts and the Amazons to find out when they would go live, because my warehouse was operational from the 1st of May, and we were allowed to operate with limited manpower, etc. So we were keen to go live, and we could actually, in the following 4 months from June to September, sell out all the inventory that we had, which we could not ship out to locations due to the retail shutdown.
Right.
So that is how e-commerce helped us in that time. And so it kind of, I said it was a savior for us.
Interesting. And you also mentioned in your opening remarks that and I think this is something we were discussing way back in May as well, that the consumer preference in terms of the leisure wear would significantly go up. Do you continue seeing that, or there is now that craving of, may not be in your particular product category, but in general in retail, I'm sure you would be aware, are the formal wears craving to come out again? How do you see that from your perspective?
There is a change, Rishi. From October, we are seeing a change. So where the fashion and the core component earlier was 60% fashion and a 40% core, it had changed to almost 80% core and 20% of fashion. Now it is approximately coming back to those levels. At least we are beyond 45% in fashion now.
Really?
If not 60%. Because also we are, I still stand by what I'm saying. It is not those flashy things that are going, more subdued colors, but still edging towards fashion. As people have started moving out of their homes, as they've started stepping out, the demand for that kind of clothing has started.
And you would reckon that this would be the case across the industry, right?
We feel by April we should be back to our earlier days kind of proportion. By April, by the time the next season comes up, for us April, May is the season. So by the time the next season comes up, it should be better.
And that's an important point, because from from the planning perspective, when you're planning for the season, and you should not. What I'm hearing from you is that we should not get too biased towards the ratio that showed up last year post the lockdown. It may be trending back to the normal. What we need to be careful about is probably flashiness or whatever. It may not be too gaudy or bold, but the ratio is probably switching back to what it was, or resetting to back to what it was.
It's a bit of a punt. I agree, Rishi. It's a bit of a punt we have to take, because finally, if we are the garment wearers, we are the ones who drive fashion. So you cannot put it away in the closet. You have to keep some products available to suggest to the customer that fashion is alive.
So that's what I was wanting to ask, that what are companies doing to put that back in order, put fashion back in order, right? You cannot, there's no excitement for the companies to sell core products, I'm sure, right? Because it's all about new styles, new fashion. So what are some of anything that you have come across apart from your own company? What are some of the other companies doing to bring that fashion back to the consumers?
So what they are doing is they are buying they are using fabrics which are ecologically better. They will call out that ecologically friendly fabric. They will call out how their company is looking for sustainability, and talk about the comfort portion of the fashionable garment. The garment is still fashionable. It is still trendy in the cuts. It is still trendy in the colors, but they still talk about the comfort aspect while saying that you can go to party in it.
Okay.
So the H&Ms, the Mango, and all these people who were those thought process they are following for the coming season, and a bit of the flashy things are being planned for the autumn winter of 22. So the retailers are looking at that turnaround by autumn winter of 22. Sorry, 21, autumn winter of 21.
21. Okay. Yes, I was thinking 22 is like
Yeah,
low. Okay.
autumn winter of 21. Because that's how the trends have started, the designing for that and the calling out for that has started.
Also, I was seeing the color forecast, and I posted it on Gap as well. It's yellow and gray, which seemed like really subdued colors for fashion. So
For yes, for fashion. But so that's for the designer to kind of find an ingenious way of working with those colors. And so for especially us, if we are talking of undergarments, yellow is a complete no-no. But then you have to learn how to use the yellow, subdue it down, make it pale, etc., and use that as the trend color.
Okay. And any tracking you're doing in terms of how rest of the world is doing? Like, is there any similarity to changes that you see over here to say in Europe or in South Asia or wherever you deal with?
So our in our garment category, there are Lululemon, which is the athleisure brand out of
But
the
not
US.
only in terms of color, Parag, but overall in terms of the
No,
consumer.
no. So there is a brand called Lululemon, which is an athleisure brand based out of the
Okay. I
US.
thought you're
Okay.
continuing with the.
No, no,
Okay.
no. It's a athleisure brand. So we have gotten into athleisure clothing, and it's more related to comfort. But Lululemon is highly fashionable yoga wear and athletic wear, and they also are trending with comfort but high fashion. They are also trending
Comfort
with
with
that.
high fashion. Okay. Now
Same
that's
is the
it.
case with Victoria's Secret. Victoria's Secret, which was only fashion, seduction, all of that, they've also now changed that. If you see their products and how they talk about their products, it's also talking about some amount of comfort, durability, basics, all of that. That's how the things are kind of being blended, reminding the customer of fashion while providing comfort.
Okay, that sounds like a new tagline, right? High fashion
Yeah.
with comfort. Okay, so before I let others come in, I'm sure people are waiting to ask you questions or share their views. I'm also keen to know one other aspect that we discussed back in May was on procurement, right? And dependency on these South Asian countries versus China. And I know you and Virendra also spoke about shifting procurement to say Indonesia, some of the things, especially those wires and stuff. So how has that panned out over last whatever 7-8 months ever since? So do you see a shift now, or all those things are forgotten and we're back to how we were?
So, in all honesty, using more of China is a big no-no, and we are trying
Okay.
to see where we can substitute and find out. Uh, Bangladesh currently is overloaded with orders, all mostly from India and the other countries who are foreign countries. Uh, Indonesia seems to be the only next option because Thailand is unaffordable anyway. Sri Lanka is also expensive. So Indonesia is the only option available. Uh, but Indonesia is also committed to much more of Europe and America. So the price points we would want and the delivery time periods that we want are still a challenge. To add fuel to the fire, the yarn prices have gone up by 30-35% in the last 2 months. So that
And
has
why is
also
that?
so the reason is that with all this COVID thing happening and the imports and the traveling of the goods and all that has become a challenge, the import has increased from India rather than from China. And so all our yarn manufacturers are able to export to these countries because they have not, our yarn capacities have not drastically increased in the last 5 years. But the sale is there, and the crop, as usual, from August is always a little low. The availability has yet to improve by.
So it's a
So while
demand
that
led increase of price.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So so is there any pull up in the domestic Atmanirbharta in terms of taking advantage of this situation? Do you see any leg up over there? Supply,
We are moving
local
there.
procurement.
We are moving there. Yeah, yeah. We are moving to local procurement. It's just that, Rishi, a lot of hand-holding is needed for the Indian manufacturers. There is an attitude of chalta hai for a lot of quality, and that chalta hai doesn't always help, and it kind of creates a kind of rift. So whenever there is a quality standard laid down, it is either a yes or a no. There cannot be a maybe. So when the
Why
QC
is
starts
it that
thinking of
Bangladesh can
maybe,
follow it and not us?
that's
What?
the thing. So yeah, I would like to recall when we were in I was in Contour Apparels, my earlier company. We had employed a Sri Lankan with us, and while he was leaving and going, I asked him, what was your feedback on this? He says, Brian, in my country there is a manager and then there is a line, that is manufacturing. The manager gives the direction and the line implements it. Nobody in the line thinks why I'm supposed to do it or how I'm supposed to do it. Because the manager has laid out a process, we have to follow the process. In your country, everybody seems to be thinking how the process can be modified and improved. So that is what is leading to the chaos. That
So
was his
our
feedback,
mind has
and that is
become our
what I
brain.
recall. Yeah, yeah. So though we may be more intelligent and we may have people who would come up with more positive things, there is also a bit of negative with it. So while we are talking to Indian manufacturers, we have to kind of lay down the norms. Say, look, this is how we would like, and this is the manufacturing quality that we expect. You have to give us that.
Interesting, but hopefully we are like beginning to go in that direction and utilize the
Where
opportunity.
we are seeing the biggest, yeah, where we are seeing the biggest successes is where we are able to promise the factories that for 1 year I'm giving you enough production. You don't need to go looking elsewhere. You are a factory manager, you are the owner of the factory. You focus on running your factory and getting the right manpower and the skill. We will keep feeding you with orders. So you don't have to worry about getting new orders, getting new customers, all of that. So if we take that off his plate, we see him to be more acceptable to our ideas and our quality points and all of that.
And where are these manufacturers in India? Are they the same old Coimbatore and Trichure of the, or they're now the people are coming up in parts?
Yeah, no, they're everywhere. You have them in and around Bombay, you have them in Maharashtra, you have them in Tirupur. There are people in Delhi, north of India, quite a few.
Okay, that's good to know. I think I'm very keen that this ecosystem develops for we make use of the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thanks, Parag. I would like to now invite others, Nisha, Sriram, James. Hi, and you guys can bring in the perspective from other industries as well in terms of like technology retail or any other forms of retail. We'll be happy to know that. Nisha goes first. Not surprised. Yes, Nisha, go ahead. Nisha, we can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Hi, Parag. Hi, Rishi.
Hi. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So I found that very interesting when you mentioned about how fashion forecasting and trends are going to be more data driven and more analytics based rather than being an art form. So in the future, do you think that it will completely become data driven, and is it going to become more of a science rather than what it is, an art form?
The forecasting in the supply chain, Nisha, will certainly be data driven and will be on the basis of all data. Like I said, even the smallest amount of what the customer purchased in the last 3 purchases is also data driven.
Sure.
And it is drawing up the data, looking into the data and coming up. The forecasting being more accurate is also helping us to fill up our stores. What is going out of stock? Also, it helps us. If I'm going to deliver twice a week and get to see that each and every hole in the matrix is filled up and nothing is, either a 34 or a 32 or nothing is missing, then I must see a data heavy thing which throws up kind of analytics to me saying what is needed. Today we are at 30 stores. This year we'll be at 50 stores. So if it grows as number of stores grows, we would need data to tell us how to replenish those stores.
Right. Okay, thank you. And also in terms of a lot of big brands like Zara and Momo, etc., outside of India, they are integrating AR and VR into their stores to kind of, take consumer buying trends to another level. So where are we in terms of that? Like, where do you see Indian retail spaces?
We are seeing the technology develop, like I talked about the CCTV incident, technologies are
Right.
developing.
Yeah.
However, we would also like to be careful and like to see how the other brands are using it before initiating much in India. Is
Right.
we don't know whether this is getting into consumer privacy. Are you getting into or stepping on customer stores by invading their privacy in some manner or the other? This
Right.
camera thing also, we were a little shy to kind of do it, and then currently it's also on hold because of other reasons, but that's where we are coming from. So we don't know how long it's going to get into piracy, and then somebody comes and sues us for something, etc. So we want to
Right.
see it tested out, the laws to be clear before we can go on to that AR/VR.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Within the store, however, the artificial intelligences are going to be used, like I said, tabs and pads and everything to talk more about the products and give more information and call out to the customers of what we have to offer. That, of course, will increase.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Parag, you mentioned about the expansion, and I'm keen to know, is the expansion of physical stores still as aggressive, or now that is being looked at with caution, considering that e-com is taking a bigger share, and the investment required on the physical store in the current circumstances may be a pretty expensive proposition. So how is that being discussed internally?
So, my answer to that would be a yes and no, because we've kind of modified what we were doing in 2020. The way we've modified is we were going in for company owned, company operated stores, which are mostly out of malls, operating out of malls, because we could see reliable footfall there in the malls and dedicated customers. However, after this lockdown has opened, we have seen that the high streets have done far, far better than the malls,
Mm.
because the malls were shut for a longer time also, and people still hesitate to get into malls, not so familiar. So we found that the high streets are doing better, and instead of having those how I would say, luxury stores in high streets, we've come down to more basic stores and come up with more basic products in these high street stores, making it a completely franchisee model rather than a company operated. So these stores are franchisee owned and operated, where the owner himself is at the counter, or he is managing the staff, etc., which is kind of making it more accessible to the customer rather than expecting her to go to the malls.
Mm. So, if I can summarize that, the expansion plan remains, but the mix has probably changed to more high street franchise
Yes,
model rather than a COCO
yes,
in mall.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
that may be a bad news for the malls, right? And I'm sure if you are thinking that way, a lot of companies would be thinking some similar
But
lines.
you know what, Rishi, to answer your question there, the malls still feel that just because COVID is over, they should be getting their old rentals,
Yeah,
which
and I
is
was
not
reading
true.
that this morning itself, right? And
Which is not true. It can't happen. It
mm,
can't happen. So unless they also realize what is the effect of this on retailers. Of course, they are worried about their loans and their overheads, etc. They are also into in business, but there has to be some handshake somewhere. I mean, with the kind of rents that they keep asking for, it's difficult for us retailers to take that punt and get into a mall and spend 50 lakhs rupees on a store.
so that means the renewals will also get affected as the stores come up for
Yeah.
renewals.
Yep.
Mm. Interesting times ahead. This is not over as yet, right? A lot of
Not at
new
all.
things will play out,
Yeah.
right? Sriram, did you want to ask something? I saw you popping up, and then James.
Hi, James here.
Hey, James.
Yeah. Hi, James.
Hi, Mr. Prag.
Hi.
I just
Hi.
want to check with you and maybe to ask you this question. So let's say now there are brands that are kind of medium priced. They're not premium. They're not cheap. And you already brand well known in the market. I'm not talking about any reference to maybe what you're doing. I'm saying in general now. But when you go online, what suggestions you would have if somebody else probably is also coming to market, right? And there are many, because now as consumers, I'm seeing the brand that I like, but I'm also comparing versus multiple other brands. How does the brand protect themselves to ensure that not only they're able to continuously sell to their base, but also, be able to have a decent margin on what they offer online.
So James, what I would recommend is you must have whatever brand you are representing, you must have your own ethos of the brand or the ethics of the brand that you've got. Stay with it. Be online, be consistent, and be consistently visible. If you have to spend a couple of bucks more for advertising and visibility, do that, but don't go down the discounting route. If you go down the discounting route and the customer finds out that she can buy cheaper online and more expensive offline, the customer gets distracted and she feels kind of cheated. So you would want to maintain price parity between your online and offline. At the same time, the customer must feel that it is the same product and must get the same product. So between online and offline, keep your products the same. The price is also the same. Okay. On and off, because you don't have your retail expenses during events, if you knock off a 10%, that's fair. I mean, it doesn't really affect the brand. But that's how I would say, even a medium price brand or a low price brand is still a brand, right? We all know Big Bazaar, however cheap they may sell, they are still a brand, right? So that's how you should maintain your brand sanctity.
So thank you for that. I have actually one more question on that. Is that on a brand, if a customer is looking at, or as you mentioned, if I want to add a few differentiated kind of products, not the base category, differentiated products. Yep. I'm already a brand which is fairly known, but online. To create that, let's say, price that I want to be able to create in terms of the margin. You see uptick happening of customers willing to try better, slightly more expensive product from a brand that they know.
Customers are not shy of price. Let me tell you, if you, and especially if you are on portals like Myntra or Nykaa, they are not shy of price. They are more cognizant of the price on Amazon. Not so much on, and the Flipkart, but not so much on the fashion platforms. So price is not a barring factor, right? So from price perspective, you don't need to worry. However, like you said, if you want to have a differentiated product, you want to try it online. Okay, go ahead, try it online, launch it there. You can even play around with the pricing a little while not launching it offline. So there is no comparison. You stick to the online for the first 1 month if you wish, or first 15 days if you wish. 15 days is too short though, but 1 month to 1.5 months as a pilot, and see what orders you are getting, whether the response is better from the north or from the south or from the east, and how you are getting the response from what price points. And that's when you could also do this A/B testing analysis. Like you remove the discount of 10% for a few days and add the discount for 10% for a few days. See how your sale peaks or goes up and down, and take a call from that of what is working for you.
Thank you, Mr. Parag. That's good guidance.
Welcome. You're on mute, Rishi.
Sorry. Thanks, Parag. Hey, James, would you like to share some of your perspective from the retail sector? You are somebody who have pretty good knowledge about technology retail. So, and I'm keen to know if your perspective on how in-store customer experience may be changing, or the companies are doing for say technology retail, or anything else. Any of your views in the current scenario, how things are unfolding?
Just I'll mention very quickly here, because technology, and I think especially smartphones and laptops, have just changed so much now that customers don't necessarily need to go to a retail store. Maybe somebody is really looking at something very new that might have come in. But other than that, in every new product that comes in on the consumer side, on the technology side, customers go and look at all the reviews that are there, all the YouTube videos, for example. I don't know whether that's there in fashion today, but it's clearly, I think that's a huge plus for any of the brands now. They look at the influencers on any of the social media. You look at all of the stuff that's there on YouTube now. I can get every single data point that I want on my product. And if that's the case and the customer likes it, they are pretty okay to going on online and picking it up. And I think, like Mr. Parag said, it's not necessarily, the price is not really something that's a barrier for many. If they believe in a brand, they find that the new features are actually good, they tend to actually just go ahead and pick it up. In fact, the demand for a new product is very high the first 1 to 3 days timeline essentially.
So
You're bang on, James. You're bang on. Well,
Yeah.
I'll just add to it that we make sure that the reviews that we get on the portals that we are selling are kept as high as possible, because all customers read reviews of how the vendor has been and how the product has been before they make a selection or before they make a buy. So that's the only way that the customer can verify for himself or herself that the product is good to buy. So yes, you are right. Customers do look up on social media what people have written about the brand and the product as they buy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so James, also I wanted to know, so how do you see the future of technology, physical retail? So in the as more of us are moving towards the online buying, it is not really a touch and feel factor as it is in the fashion segment. So do we see in the next coming years the reduction of the physical stores for technology goods and moving skewing towards the online, or you think that they would still survive alongside and with the models that Parag was mentioning, that you order there and gets delivered? Any thoughts that you see these things unfolding?
I think again, just to add to what Mr. Parag said earlier, I think essentially it's true for most retail. And I'll just give the example of, let's say, Apple retail for now. If you look at Apple on their display section, which occupies maybe approximately 60% of the retail space, there are barely 17 SKUs on display. That is all. Okay, and that alone, I mean, generates a significant amount of value. So I think really what customers are looking at, their absolute core or your fashion that you got within your store, that needs to get, showcased front and center to customers, right? I think that's what every retail store needs to try and figure for themselves, is really what's going to make that impact when people walk into your store. Then the moment they're actually induced and see the flavor of what the brand has got, whether it's high price, whether it's cutting edge fashion, whether it's something very new in terms of tech or features, whatever that might be. If that's the case, then they're intrigued, then they're excited, then they would like to buy that. But then again, they also want to buy core. Then again, they want to buy something which is, let's say, more staple. Then that I probably don't need to keep it. So maybe I keep a small assortment of that. Then I go online, right? Because that's, why do I need to waste retail space for something like that? Then I go online and pick up what I want and I get it shipped home, or I pick it up from many of the other stores closest to my space. I think retail essentially is about getting that experience and really differentiate experience because of something that you got truly different within that store, which I can't get online. And anything else, then I just marry what I have online within the store, and the sales guys assist me with that, and that gets closed out. So I think if you can bring that in really well, and it's not easy, that could be something that could really still continue with customers wanting to come to the store, because that experience when I come, and the flavor is so different to what I would get online. I don't have the answers for it, but I think if people can get that right, that would make a big difference.
True. I'm sure Minds in India will come up with some interesting stuff around that. Thanks, James. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi Parag, this is Sheetal here. And I have one question. So I wanted to understand, considering India is such a diverse market, there's tier one cities which behave quite differently compared to tier two cities and tier three cities. And the effect of lockdown on these different tier segments across India have been quite different. The way people behave in bigger cities compared to, tier two cities, that's quite different for the COVID that I'm talking about. So how has the impact, or what are the things that are shaping up in these tier two and tier three segments, and how it is different to tier one? Are companies like Amazon, Flipkart, which saw a huge potential in the tier two and tier three cities, are fashion and retail brands also looking at these segments in the same way, or is there a different trend that's emerging out from there?
So yeah, your question is very very pertinent, because you see in tier two and tier three cities, first of all, the brands. Let me take the example of a distributor we have who's also distributing Allen Solly, Peter England, all of those garments, and he's dealing with. He's a distributor for South of India and has got retail stores also. The first pickup he saw in the after the lockdown opened was in tier three and tier two cities. His store in Dindigul started doing pre-COVID numbers way back in, I think, July. Okay, so to them, to the tier 2, tier 3 who are not so crowded and are far apart and don't have as much population, to them that didn't matter. Also, they were not reading a lot of the news that we were reading, so they weren't getting bogged down or scared by the COVID as we were, and therefore they kind of recovered faster. And that is from that trend also that the high street started doing better. And so whether it was the Madura garments or any brands that were related, I mean, trying to focus on tier 2, tier 3, now the entire journey for all retailers, everybody is looking at tier 2, 3 rather than 1, because that seems to be the way to go. That seems where the market is. That is where people are having money to spend on. It will be a different offering. We may not able to offer the same product there. We may have to tweak the offering a little, because tier 2, tier 3, what we have seen also is however rich the person may be, they still look for value for money. So that value for money is what you have to bring into your product and be able to exploit the tier 2 and 3 cities. As far as Amazon, Myntra is concerned, they were always delivering to those places, and they will continue.
And how about the technology bit? Because in tier 1, the kind of technologies that we use, it's quite different, and I mean it's very strong. And now the mobile penetration in these cities, in tier 2 and tier 3 segments, it's increasing. In fact, that's the biggest share where we are seeing the mobile penetration, which kind of results in focusing towards m-commerce or e-commerce. So you think that that's also emerging big time?
That's the next big thing in software development is people are trying to do all their websites or applications in dual languages, multiple languages, Indian languages, so that that cell phone technology and that penetration through the cell phone that has happened is kind of capitalized. So far people have in those cities have learned to use the phone as a phone and as a WhatsApp. Beyond that, how much they use it for m-commerce is still limited because it's not familiar. The language is not familiar. People can all read English, but it's not their first language. And so if you have any app or any communication in their home tongue, in their mother tongue, home language, then it always resonates better. And that's where the next round of software development seems to be happening.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Interesting. Hi, Mithun. I know you're from the advertising world. Any insights for us on how companies are, trying to communicate now with the consumers in terms of without, you don't have to name the specifics that may be confidential, but in general, how do you see the communication from the companies?
Hi, Rishi. Thank you for the question. I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear the question. Could you please repeat that?
Yeah, since you are from the advertising world, I just wanted to know, how do you see a change in approach from the companies in terms of communication, media communication to the consumers? Is there any change in thought process as a mandate to you guys working on those requests?
Right, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So post-pandemic, there has been a huge shift, of course, evidently speaking, in the way people have gone about with the media spends. There's been a huge cut down on outdoor print, and there's been a large shift onto digital media. So I deal with very little fashion clients. Mine's more real estate, and we have Fabric Spa as one of our clients, just to mention that. So they have largely increased their media spends when it comes to digital advertising. So going forward, I think that's going to be a huge paradigm shift when it comes to that, because even real estate, for that matter, they're rethinking the whole advertising strategy when it comes to how much they have to spend on online, or how much they have to go to outdoor or print. So there's been a huge shift, and we are ramping up our digital team to ensure we can keep up with the demand that's coming our way.
Also, do you see any shift in the messaging itself, versus how it used to be in the pre-COVID world versus now? Is there
interesting question. Yeah, sure. Messaging wise, yes, there is a lot of talk about. So that's just the generic thing that every brand has been doing, in the sense they've been trying to address the post-pandemic or the pandemic as such, and try and squeeze that into the messaging. But otherwise, except for the whole advertising shifting to digital, we haven't seen. Initially, there was a lot of communication that was very pandemic specific, but then the way the brands have shifted the way they operate itself and talk to the consumers, it's gradually going back to what it was pre-pandemic, messaging wise I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
Only thing the mediums have been largely being used, that is digital.
Okay, thanks, Mithun.
Thank you.
That's interesting to know what Parag said and what Mithun is saying, that we are kind of in many ways sliding back to what it was in pre-COVID world, but probably with some new avatar, right?
Absolutely.
That's why it's called new normal.
Yeah, right. It's new and as well as normal.
Yeah.
Right. Naeem, any insights from you, from what you see? Sivaya, I don't see your audio being on, Sivaya, so I'm not sure if you're connected well.
I would like to add something if nobody
Sure,
else
Nisha.
is.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think we have views from the high fashion or insights from the high fashion industry. What I have been seeing is that in terms of, the consumers are not able to hit the brick and mortar stores, right? So I think the next shift is what I saw was in virtual storytelling being adapted as part of, their digital recalibration. For example, Dior premiered its Spring Summer 21 ready-to-wear collection entirely virtually, exclusively streaming on TikTok during the Paris Fashion Week. So that is, I think, a huge shift that has happened from the when it comes to high fashion or couture. I think storytelling has become an important component around branding and experiential in-store experiences that have been I think they've changed this way. So yeah, I think in terms of high fashion, that is a shift that I have observed.
Yeah, you're right, Nish. I've also heard of another brand, I forget the name, but they have done a virtual 3D reality fashion show
Yes,
for their garments, and they've also
correct.
planned to do that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nisha, for that insight from the high fashion world.
Sure.
I think the technology has really accelerated in its penetration in last 12 months. Definitely a very, very different world from that perspective.
Right.
Right. So I'm just maybe there is no more questions. So, and we are bang on time. That's very good. Something to improve upon as Indians, and I think we can contribute.
Yeah.
Apart from not thinking on the assembly lines, very good start to this industry meet from this quarter. Thanks, Parag, a lot for those opening insights as well as answering all the questions, and everybody for getting in your perspectives as well. So we intend to do this once a quarter, and we all come together and discuss what's going on. We can continue this discussion on the platform. Should everybody else have any questions or want to discuss further on this topic, we can continue on the GAP platform. Right. So thanks, everyone. Let's continue to track this story on how it is unfolding in terms of technology, consumer preferences, and everything else from TikTok to these stores. Right. So thanks a lot. And Parag, do not forget to post your requirement on the GAP platform.
Sure.
Right? We'll be happy to support. Right.
Thanks,
everybody, and have a good weekend. Right. Thank you.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you.